Day 1. The Art of Starting Right or Completely Wrong. Part 1. The Bold Beginnings of President Smith. Picture this. It's your first day on the job as the President of the United States. Day 1. The weight of the world is literally on your shoulders. The Oval Office smells faintly of leather, ambition, and the lingering scent of past mistakes made by your predecessors. You sit down in that iconic chair, take a deep breath, and whisper to yourself, "I'm going to change the world, but first, coffee." Ah, coffee, the great equalizer. No matter what your political stance, the universal truth is that no one can rule the free world on an empty stomach. But beyond the caffeine jitters, the reality sinks in. Day 1. The first 24 hours of your presidency. A clean slate, the opportunity to make your mark, a chance to launch your grand plans into motion, whether they are world-changing or just plain odd. Let's pause and consider the weight of this first day. The moment you step into the Oval Office for the first time, it's almost as if the room itself holds its breath, waiting to see if you'll rise to the occasion or stumble into oblivion. And the truth is, Day 1 is where legends are made, or memes, depending on how well you execute your plans. Think about it. The first day is like setting the launch code to the rest of your tenure. But what happens if that launch code malfunctions? Well, let's find out. We're going to look at a fictional president, someone fresh off the campaign trail, brimming with optimism and ambitious ideas. Let's call this person President Smith. They have dreams of changing the world, but they also have no idea what they're doing yet. It's Day 1, and the phone rings. It's the Secretary of State with an update on global affairs. "Mr. President," they say, "the world is watching. What will your first official order be?" Smith stares at the phone, distracted by the comfy chair they're sitting in. "Wait, I was supposed to make an order?" In that moment, the newly elected president decides that there's only one thing they can do that will change the world, at least in the eyes of their citizens: traffic jams. Yes, you heard that right. Smith declares that they're going to solve traffic congestion once and for all. Why? Because let's face it, nothing irks the average citizen more than sitting in endless traffic, tapping their fingers on the steering wheel, and dreaming of a world where cars simply move. So President Smith launches an unprecedented campaign to abolish traffic jams. And how does one achieve this, you ask? Simple. By instituting a nationwide policy of staggered work hours based on astrological signs. Virgos, you'll start at 7 a.m., Smith declares. Capricorns, you'll roll in by 8 a.m. And Scorpios, you're officially banned from the roads between 8 and 9 a.m. because you are too intense for the average commute. The press conference is a mix of confusion and mild enthusiasm. The nation has no idea what just happened, but it's certainly entertaining. Reporters scramble to ask questions, but no one really knows what to say. Is this a joke? Is it genius? Smith holds their ground, unfazed. By the end of Day 1, social media explodes. Twitter users have already coined the term Zodiac President, creating memes that would go viral faster than you can say astrological disaster. As absurd as it sounds, there's something oddly brilliant about this decision. The truth is, beginnings are always a little bit messy, but that's where innovation happens. Lao Tzu, the ancient Chinese philosopher, understood this when he said, "A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." But Lao Tzu didn't mention that the first step might involve tripping over your shoelaces, and that's where the beauty lies. As the day progresses, we follow President Smith's journey further. They're now making executive orders like a machine, one after another. The first one, traffic reform, was bold, but maybe the next one will be even bolder. After all, they can't stop at just traffic, right? Around lunchtime, President Smith signs a bill that mandates nap times for all adults. Yes, nap times. We're a nation that's overworked, under-rested, and frankly, we need a break, Smith says in the briefing room. If it works for kindergartners, it can work for everyone. The bill passes with overwhelming support, but opposition rises from all corners. Political pundits scream that the nation will collapse under the weight of its new nap time policy. What will happen to the stock market when no one's at work? They ask. Others are more practical, wondering if 1 hour of napping is enough for an entire nation to recharge. The debate rages on, but one thing is certain, The nation's collective nap times are now the subject of heated political discourse. But let's not get too bogged down in policy. This is day one, after all. The one day where anything is possible. If President Smith had to lay out their greatest wish for the country, it would be simple: improve morale. And if there's one thing that improves morale more than anything, it's the promise of a free donut every Friday. And yes, you guessed it, by the end of day one, that's another executive order. All government workers are now entitled to free donuts on Fridays. Why? Because nothing says we appreciate you more than a box of freshly baked pastries. The media reacts with a mixture of bewilderment and admiration. Some call President Smith out of touch with reality. Others label them the most creative leader the nation has ever had. As the day winds down, President Smith finds themselves laughing at the absurdity of it all. They're only one day into this presidency, but they've already made waves. Sure, maybe some of their policies are outlandish. Maybe no one knows how to implement staggered zodiac schedules or where to draw the line between approved nap environments and just taking a nap on the job. But these decisions are making headlines. They're causing people to think, and sometimes that's all it takes. Day one, it turns out, is about momentum. It's not about perfecting your plans or getting every detail right. It's about taking that first step. In fact, President Smith has learned a very valuable lesson. You don't have to get it all right on day one, you just have to start. As the sun sets on the first day of Smith's presidency, the weight of the world still rests on their shoulders, but it feels a little lighter. They've survived the chaos of their first executive orders, survived the media frenzy, and even survived the inevitable mockery. The world might still be uncertain, but at least Smith knows one thing for sure. Day one, despite all its mistakes and absurdities, has been a success. Because momentum is the secret ingredient for change. And now, President Smith can only wonder, what happens on day two? Part 2, the unpredictable ride of day two. By day two, President Smith had survived the initial shockwaves of their first day. The world was still reeling from their bold and unprecedented moves, like astrology-based traffic schedules and mandatory nap times. Yet the nation couldn't stop talking about it. The media churned out endless commentary, some baffled, others entertained. But as the sun rose on day two, President Smith had no intention of slowing down. They were just getting started. Smith decided that an emergency press conference was in order to address the nation. But this wasn't going to be any ordinary speech. In the midst of a national crisis, presidential overreach, confusing policies, and memes flooding social media, Smith strolled into the press room wearing a superhero cape. The reporters were stunned, their questions lost for a moment as the president waved dramatically. "Ladies and gentlemen," Smith began, "I proudly introduce the National Superhero Initiative." The room fell silent, save for the clicking of cameras. From this day forward, any citizen who believes they possess the mental and physical fortitude of a superhero can register for a cape for free. The absurdity of it all hung in the air. Reporters scrambled for questions. Is this part of your budget proposal? How does giving capes solve anything? Smith, however, was undeterred. They didn't expect people to save the world with capes. This was about empowerment. It was a symbol of belief in one's own potential. The next day, the headlines exploded. Some called Smith a visionary, others called it a joke. But, as always, Smith's popularity soared. Later that day, Smith made another announcement. Every speech from now on would be delivered in rhyme. Because, they reasoned, rhyming gives weight to words. It makes you sound more official. Sure, it was nonsensical, but day one had set a tone of unpredictability, and day two was no different. In the next televised address, Smith launched into rhyming couplets. "Fellow citizens, you may be shocked, but let me tell you how we're locked in a battle for truth and for peace. We shall rise and never cease." The nation couldn't decide if this was brilliant or a complete farce, but it didn't matter. The media had fresh material, and the American people, they couldn't look away. Comedy writers had a field day, and Smith's approval rating remained high. Sometimes the ridiculous is just what people need to feel a bit of hope. Next, President Smith, in their infinite wisdom, decided to give every citizen a free pet. "Pets make people happy," Smith declared. A nation that loves its pets will love each other more. It seemed harmless enough, but then the animal shelters were overrun with requests. Shelters had to scramble to handle the surge of adoptions, and animal rights activists screamed that this wasn't a solution. It was a chaos-inducing publicity stunt. Yet strangely, pet adoptions skyrocketed. The media had a field day, but there was one undeniable fact. People were, in fact, happier. The viral pet photos flooded social media, and the nation's collective mood lifted. Smith's pet initiative may have seemed silly, but it worked, at least for the moment. Then came the final move of day 2, Kindness Day. President Smith declared a new national holiday where each citizen would perform a random act of kindness, but with a twist. The acts of kindness would be assigned by the government's newly formed Kindness Bureau. Some tasks were simple. Tell a stranger they have a nice smile. Others were more involved. Help someone change a flat tire. And while the policy seemed absurd on paper, it sparked an unexpected sense of unity. Local college students gave away free ice cream at parks. Businessmen were caught delivering gratitude speeches to strangers on public transportation. By the end of the day, the country felt a little lighter. The Kindness Day initiative became an annual tradition, and the viral kindness challenges inspired Americans to get involved in ways they never had before. It was chaotic, but it was a chaos that felt oddly right. As day 2 drew to a close, President Smith looked at the results of their unorthodox decisions. No, they hadn't solved climate change or improved foreign relations. They hadn't fixed the economy or reformed healthcare. But, in a way, they had brought a fractured nation together. The randomness, the silliness, it made people talk. It made them think. Smith looked out of the Oval Office window, reflecting on the day. No matter how unpredictable, how wild, how absurd it seemed, day 2 had been another success. Not in the traditional sense, of course, but in the most important way possible. Momentum had been created. People were invested, not in the outcome, but in the journey. By now, the press had coined the term Zodiac President and had given Smith a new nickname, the Philosopher King of Chaos. Sure, it was a little mocking, but as day 2 came to an end, President Smith knew they had ignited something important. People had embraced the ridiculousness with open arms, and perhaps, just perhaps, that's what the world needed right now. Tomorrow would bring a new challenge, a new opportunity for the unexpected. But for now, President Smith had only one thought. I think I can do this. Tomorrow,